Now let's start our chapter number 3, cost estimation techniques. Let's just spend a few minutes to recall what we have learned in chapter number 2. Okay, so chapter number 2, we learned a lot of economic language, the terms, right, terminologies, and we also learned different types of costs, right, fixed costs, variable costs, direct costs, indirect costs, and in the end of chapter number 2, we've seen the example of how to calculate the total cost, the total profit, total revenue, maximum profit, maximum revenue, and optimal demand, right, and profitable range. So those are all based on one condition or some given conditions. You remember that? You always know what is the fixed costs, what is the variable costs. You know it already in the problem statement, right? So that's given in chapter number 2. But in reality, when you're running your own business, you have to estimate those fixed costs, variable costs by yourself. It's not always given, okay? To do that, to estimate the cost, you need to use some techniques. And this chapter is all about different techniques you can use, okay? So, chapter number 3 is just to teach you under what condition, what technique is the best to estimate the cost. And then you can use that cost number in the example like in chapter number 2 to calculate your profit. Okay? So here is a chart of the home price and the building cost of median homes in California coast, on California coast. Okay, so the chart is very interesting. On the vertical axis, it's the year. So we have year from 1985 to 2013. Okay, and we also in the vertical. Oh, so sorry. This is horizontal axis. So horizontal axis is the year, and the vertical axis is the price or the cost. Okay, so US dollars for the vertical axis. And there are 2 lines in this chart. One line is the dotted line. The dotted line is the California coast building cost. Okay, and the another line above it, the very bumpy line in solid black color, that's the California coast home price. So building cost, you can tell that it's kind of stable, right? It almost looks like a straight line, although it's a little bit angled. Excuse me. Okay, now I'm back. Sorry, I have to turn down the TV TV's volume. Okay, my son is watching the cartoon. All right, so the two lines are pretty different. The home price is bumpy along the different years. So you can tell that in the year maybe 1989, it's a peak for the home price, and then in 1996 it's a bottom, and then in 2005 or 6 it's another higher peak. Okay, and then during the year between 2008 to 2012, it's another bottom again. We all know what happened during this time period, right? It's a crisis, economic crisis. So the market goes down and the home price goes down because nobody wants to spend money on buying a house, which makes sense. So the home price is really sensitive, and it's going up and down very greatly. But on the other hand, the building cost stays almost the same. It's very stable, right? So which means the cost of a building hasn't changed so much. So the materials and the labor cost are not changed along with the market that much. It's a comparison between the home price and the building cost. Okay, so which means compared to the home price change, the building cost is not changing that much. And so right now, if I want you to estimate the home price in the year of 2015, which line do you think is easier to use? Do you think the home price is easier to estimate, or the building cost is easier to estimate? I would say it's hard to predict accurately the home price because we don't know, because it's too sensitive to the market change, right? And nobody can predict the market that accurately. So we're not sure if the solid black line is going to go down or go up in the next few years, right? So that's questionable and it's hard to predict. But if I ask you to predict the building cost of a California coast house, that seems an easier job because we can tell it's very stable. So we can, we can say, okay, pretty much it's going up like that, right? Just keep the angle the same. And then you can just draw a line from the dotted line, and then find the year 2015. Okay, and then this price is gonna be your estimated building cost. So this is just one way for you to estimate the cost of something. You can use the historical data and plot them on a chart and see the trend. If the trend is very stable and predictable, of course, based on your experience, right? And then you can use this kind of, method to extrapolate the line and then got to the estimation. But if in case that trend is not predictable, it's bumpy like the home price, then this is not a good method for you. Okay, so this is just an example to tell you, okay, for one method, it has some conditions that it will work, but under another condition, it won't work. So you have to choose the right method. And in this chapter, we're going to learn many different methods. Before that, we want to explain why cost estimating is important, because we need some motivation to learn chapter 3, right? We know we will learn a lot of techniques and a lot of calculation. So it's tough. So we need a good motivation. So why we need to do all of this? Because it's very important. First, as what we said, it will provide the cost figures for examples like in chapter 2. You need to have the costs given so that you can estimate your profit, your revenue, and your profitable range. Okay. And second, it will provide cost estimates for future years, right? So that they can be converted into present or future or annual costs for comparison between different options. So, and all of this is about chapter 4, is chapter 4 about. Okay, so you can see the cost estimating as building blocks for chapter 4. Without this cost numbers, we're not going to compare different options, different business plans. And number 3, an economic analysis is only as good as the data used to describe the project or design cost and benefit. Remember that when we decide which business plan or which option to go with, we always want to quantify the cost and benefit for each of them, right? And we want to go with the one with the least cost with the most benefit. But without the good cost estimate, your comparison and your selection is not guaranteed to be the wise one, which means garbage in, garbage out. Thus, we need to learn these techniques to estimate the cost numbers. And cost estimating, by definition, is the process used to predict the present and future financial consequences, like incomes and expenses of a project. And the process used to generate a cash flow diagram. And cash flow diagram is something very important in this class and will be introduced in chapter 4 and 5. But here, what we learn is just components for the cost for the cash flow diagram, because you really need that cost numbers